The storm had painted New York in shades of steel and neon, a city drowning in its own reflection. Rain lashed against the windows of Kyle Harrison's penthouse office, each drop a ticking clock he no longer cared to hear. He sat perfectly still, his silhouette carved into the leather chair like a statue of a man who'd forgotten how to breathe. The coffee in his cup had gone cold 3 hours ago. "Sir, the board is waiting for your signature." His assistant hovered near the door, clutching a folder like a shield. Kyle didn't look up. A flick of his wrist dismissed her without a word. The door clicked shut, sealing him back into silence. The numbers on his screen blurred, another empire built on the ruins of a life he'd erased. Outside, the city pulsed with indifferent energy. His driver navigated the soaked streets with practiced ease, the limousine gliding past glowing storefronts and hunched pedestrians. Then, a flicker of movement caught his eye. A woman stood under the awning of St. Mary's Children's Hospital, her arms wrapped around a little girl in a yellow raincoat. The child laughed, spinning in circles until her hood flew back, revealing a wild tumble of caramel curls. The woman reached to fix it, and in that moment, she looked up, directly at his car. Kyle's chest tightened. Her eyes were the exact shade of whiskey held up to sunlight. A color he'd spent years trying to drown in scotch and spreadsheets. The limousine turned the corner, but the image burned behind his eyelids, the way her hand had lingered on the girl's cheek, the quiet curve of her smile. That night, the penthouse felt like a tomb. He stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the storm swallow the skyline. Sleep was a foreign concept, chased away by ghosts. But when exhaustion finally dragged him under, the dream came, sharp as shattered glass. A hospital room. Beeping machines. A woman's voice, frayed at the edges, "Promise you'll find her." He woke with a gasp, his shirt clinging to his back. The clock read 3:47 a.m. Rain still fell, relentless. Somewhere in the city, a child with whiskey-eyed mother slept beneath the same storm. And for the first time in a decade, Kyle Harrison wondered if some doors weren't meant to stay closed. The next morning, his assistant found him staring at a file he'd pulled himself, donation records for St. Mary's. "Cancel my meetings," he said, his voice rough. "I'm going out." Across town, the girl in the yellow raincoat traced hearts on a foggy window, unaware that fate had already begun to turn its wheel. The automatic doors of St. Mary's hissed open, releasing a wave of antiseptic air into the morning chill. Kyle Harrison stood frozen on the threshold, his polished Oxford squeaking against the linoleum. He hadn't stepped inside a hospital since that night. A squeal of laughter snapped him back. Down the hall, the little girl from the rainstorm, Sophie, according to the donation records, was twirling in circles, her yellow raincoat flaring like a sunflower. The woman from his dreams knelt to tie her shoe, her dark hair slipping from its ponytail. Kyle's pulse thundered in his ears. He should leave. This was madness. Then Sophie looked up. "Hi, mister." She waved with both hands, her gap-toothed smile hitting him like a physical blow. "Do you work here too?" "Mommy says only special people help sick kids." The woman, Lynn, her name tag read, turned. Her coffee-colored eyes widened. A clipboard clattered to the floor between them, scattering papers. "I'm sorry," she breathed, scrambling to gather them. "Sophie, don't bother the gentleman." Kyle crouched to help. His fingers brushed against hers as he handed back a sheet. The contact sent an electric jolt up his arm. Up close, he noticed the faint scar above her eyebrow, the tired lines around her mouth that makeup couldn't conceal. "You're the man from the black car," she whispered. Sophie tugged his sleeve. "Are you rich?" "Rich people always wear shiny shoes." "Sophie." Lynn's cheeks flushed pink. To his own shock, Kyle felt his lips twitch. "They do," he agreed solemnly. Reaching into his pocket, he produced a gold coin he always carried for luck. "But you know what's better than shiny shoes?" The child's eyes grew round as he placed the coin in her palm. "Magic?" Exactly. His throat tightened as her small fingers closed around it. This one's special. It finds lost things. Lynn made a soft noise. When he dared to look up, her face had gone pale. "Mr. Harrison," she said carefully, "you should." A crash echoed down the corridor. A gurney rattled past, surrounded by shouting doctors. In the chaos, Sophie's tiny hand slipped into his. "Don't be scared," she whispered, squeezing his fingers with surprising strength. "I hold Mommy's hand here too. The beeping machines are just singing." Kyle's vision blurred. Somewhere in this building, another child had taken her first breath as her mother took her last. The memory rose like a tide, Emily's sweat-damp hair clinging to the pillow, her desperate grip on his hand. "Her name is..." A high-pitched alarm shattered the thought. Lynn gasped. Sophie's coin clinked to the floor as she swayed. Kyle caught her just as her knees buckled, her small body burning through the yellow coat. "Sophie. Sophie." Lynn dropped beside them, pressing a hand to the child's forehead. "Not again, baby, please." Kyle gathered the girl against his chest, her heartbeat fluttering like a trapped bird against his ribs. "Where's pediatrics?" he demanded. Lynn's tear-filled eyes met his. "Third floor." "But you don't have to." He was already moving, Sophie's breath hot against his neck. As he ran, the walls seemed to whisper the truth he wasn't ready to face. This child, this moment, was no accident. And the coin still rolling across the hospital floor. It landed heads up, glinting in the fluorescent light like the first star of evening. A promise. A warning. The first thread pulled from a tapestry of lies. The pediatric ward hummed with muted urgency as nurses swarmed around Sophie's bedside. Kyle stood frozen near the doorway, his tailored suit jacket still damp from the child's feverish sweat. Every beep of the monitor sent a jolt through him, each mechanical breath of the oxygen machine syncing with his own ragged inhalations. Lynn moved like a ghost between the medical staff, her fingers trembling as she smoothed Sophie's damp curls. Her temperature was normal this morning, she kept repeating to the doctors, her voice fraying at the edges. This keeps happening and no one knows why. A young resident frowned at the chart. These episodes started when? 3 months after her 5th birthday. Lynn's gaze flickered to Kyle for half a second too long. Almost exactly 5 years ago. The air left Kyle's lungs. 5 years. The math clicked into place with terrible precision. He stepped forward without thinking. "Run a full genetic panel." The command rolled off his tongue with the weight of a man used to being obeyed. "Specifically check for Harrison syndrome." The head neurologist turned, recognition flashing across her face. "Mr. Harrison. My God, we studied your family's research at Johns Hopkins." Her eyes dropped to Sophie, then back to him with dawning horror. "You don't think?" The room tilted. Kyle gripped the footboard of Sophie's bed as fragmented memories assaulted him, his grandfather's research into the rare neurological condition that affected their family line, the telltale symptoms that always appeared before age 6. The reason Emily had been so desperate to tell him something that last night. Lynn made a broken sound. When he forced himself to meet her eyes, they were swimming with tears and something worse, guilt. "You knew." The words came out strangled. "This whole time, you knew she was." A weak cough interrupted them. Sophie's lashes fluttered open, her glassy eyes struggling to focus. "Mr." Her small hand reached for him instinctively. Did the magic coin work? Something shattered in Kyle's chest. He was at her side in 2 strides, his large hand engulfing hers. "It's working right now, sunshine," he whispered, brushing his thumb across her knuckles. "I promise." Lynn backed toward the door, her hands pressed to her mouth. Kyle caught her wrist as she passed. The truth hung between them, heavy as a death sentence. "Not here," she begged under her breath. "Not like this." Down the hall in an empty consultation room, Lynn collapsed into a chair. The fluorescent lights highlighted the exhaustion etched into her face, the years of fear she'd carried alone. "Emily made me swear," she began, her voice barely audible. "That night, when the complications started, she made the nurses bring me to maternity from my shift in oncology." A shudder ran through her. "She said your family would take the baby away if they knew about the Harrison gene. That you'd lock her in some research facility instead of." Kyle's knees gave out. He caught himself on the edge of a medical cart, sending instruments clattering. "I would never." "You weren't there." Lynn's outburst echoed off the tiled walls. "The way your mother spoke to her when she came to your apartment pregnant, the things she said about protecting the bloodline." She hugged herself, rocking slightly. Emily was terrified. "So when she didn't wake up after delivery, I took Sophie and ran." A monitor alarm blared somewhere down the hall, the sound eerily reminiscent of the machines that had surrounded Emily's deathbed. Kyle pressed his palms to his eyes until colors burst behind his eyelids. All those board meetings. All those mergers. Every damn second he'd spent building an empire instead of searching for his own child. "Look at me." He waited until Lynn raised her tear-streaked face. Did she ever? Every day. Lynn's whisper was fierce. "Right up until that last contraction, she said your name like a prayer." Outside the door, a chorus of voices erupted. The neurologist burst in, her face alight with cautious hope. "Mr. Harrison, the preliminary tests, we think we can stabilize her." Kyle was moving before the sentence finished. Back in Sophie's room, the medical team parted for him like the Red Sea. His daughter, looked up at him with Emily's eyes and a face that mirrored his childhood photos. "Daddy," she murmured sleepily, the words slipping out as naturally as breathing. The world narrowed to that single moment. To the rightness of that word in her voice. To Lynn's quiet sob behind him. To the 5 years of memories he'd never get back. Kyle Harrison, the billionaire who never begged, dropped to his knees beside the hospital bed and pressed his forehead to their joined hands. "I'm here, sunshine," he choked out. "Daddy's finally here." 5 years later, the Harrison Family Foundation gala shimmered under crystal chandeliers. Reporters clustered near the entrance, eager to catch a glimpse of Wall Street's most enigmatic power couple. But the real story was unfolding upstairs in the penthouse suite, where a 10-year-old girl in a lavender gown stood on her father's polished shoes as they practiced their waltz. "Ow. Sophie, sweetheart, that's my third toe you've massacred today." Kyle winced, but his eyes crinkled with laughter. Sophie giggled, her caramel curls bouncing. "But Daddy, you said practice makes perfect." Across the room, Lynn adjusted her earrings in the mirror, watching their reflection with quiet wonder. The scar above her eyebrow, a souvenir from the night she'd fled the hospital with newborn Sophie, had faded to a faint silver line. Like all their wounds, it had healed, but the memory remained. A soft chime announced the elevator's arrival. Kyle's mother stepped out, her designer gown rustling. The years had softened her sharp edges, though her posture remained regal. She paused at the sight of Sophie twirling in Kyle's arms. "I brought something," she said quietly, extending a velvet box. Inside lay a tiny pearl necklace, the same one she'd worn as a child. "For our miracle girl." Sophie's eyes widened. "Grandma. Does this mean I'm a real princess now?" "You always were," Kyle murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. Lynn joined them, slipping her hand into Kyle's. His fingers tightened around hers automatically, as they had every day since that stormy morning in the hospital. Outside, the first snow of winter began to fall, dusting Central Park in white. Downstairs, the orchestra struck up a waltz. The gala awaited its honored guests, the billionaire who traded his empire for bedtime stories, the nurse who'd saved his soul, and the little girl who taught them all how to love again. But for this one suspended moment, they stayed exactly where they belonged, together in the golden light, with Sophie's laughter ringing through the room like the first clear note after a long silence. The past was forgiven. The future was bright. And somewhere beyond the city lights, if you listened very closely, you might have heard the whisper of a woman's voice in the winter wind, "Thank you for finding our way home."